Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today is an absolutely outstanding episode on the CryptoHamster channel. We have a very special guest today, the one and only Alessio Rastani, the guru of TA, the master of charts, and one of the most recognizable TA experts in the crypto space. So a lot of the people were asking for this interview. A lot of people became very excited when I announced that this interview actually has a chance to happen. So there are many questions about the Bitcoin and crypto space to Mr. Rastani. They sent to me, and of course, we couldn't cover all of them because time is limited, but we'll try to talk about the most important things, in particular about the price of Bitcoin. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Rastani for finding time. So welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure. Nice to meet you all.
So guys, without further ado, let's jump into the topic of Bitcoin price, numbers, trend lines, and everything which we love so much. So let's start with some general things. Currently, we have a magnificent rally for at least recent few months, starting from 3,000 to ending maybe 14,000 recently, and basically before that it was like a long bear market period. So Mr. Rastani, what's your general view on the current crypto market situation, price of Bitcoin, altcoins, from just technical analysis perspective?
By the way, you can call me Alessio, and nice to meet you all. That's great.
Very nice. Thank you.
I mean, the bottom line is that as far as the Bitcoin market is concerned, so your question is, are we potentially in a bull market? Was that what you're asking? Is that what you're?
Well, maybe you have some
charts potentially telling us at the moment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, actually, we have more specific questions in the end of that. But basically, how do you feel? Do we actually switch to some new cycle? Are we having the chance to return to the bear market, or maybe, for example, since we have too fast parabolic move from the bottom, if it was the bottom, then it's unsustainable. Like something which you maybe have in mind, which makes you wake up in the middle of the night, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So at the moment, I have to tell you, I'm a bit surprised that the rally so far, since a few months ago, I think, well, April, I guess you could say, hasn't had a decent pullback or retracement. By retracement or pullback, we're talking about something that at least brings it down to some key support levels, to some weekly support levels. Right. We haven't had that. I mean, sure, we've had the little pullbacks down to the daily 21 average or daily 20-day average, but we haven't. I mean, I wouldn't really call that a sizable pullback, and it's quite surprising. The strength has been quite surprising, not just to me, but I guess to many analysts. Now, of course, I'm sure there's many crypto bulls watching this saying, "Oh, well, this was all to be expected." But here's the way I see it, and then I know you're going to ask this question in a few moments. But the way I see it at the moment is, let's see if the Bitcoin market is going to take out. I want to see if the Bitcoin price is going to take out the previous highs we made in June. So in June, we made a high, I think, near the 13,500 level. I think it was probably 13,800. I think it was. We need to see if that level is going to get taken out. The recent movement in Bitcoin has been quite strong. It looks like it might be trying to challenge that level. Let's see if it takes that level out. And if it does, then it could potentially move even higher towards 14,000, maybe even 15,000. I'm a bit surprised that this particular drop hasn't taken us down further lower, at least to, let's say, 8,000 or some support levels near 8,000, 9,000 or something like that. Surprised it hasn't done that yet. Now, it might still do that, but the bottom line is that it looks like the way things are going, the way the market is still holding the lows of June, the lows we made a few weeks ago, and it hasn't taken that level out. For the moment, the buyers have control. And as I said in a video I posted just a few days ago, I said, look, as long as the markets are staying above the June, the lows we made a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and as long as we remain above the 20-day average, buyers still have control, and there's no point fighting that.
That's very interesting. Thanks a lot. I think that very recently, maybe a couple of days ago, we actually been through this 21 EMA on the daily time frame, but still we returned back. So it seems like it held fine.
I mean, we tested it, came down, tested a 20-day average, but we did not close below it. I should say I'm looking at the charts. I am looking at the charts on MT4 now. Maybe on TradingView, I don't know if it's on, I don't know if in TradingView it shows that differently. I have to check. But as far as I'm aware, on most charts like MT4 and the ones that exclude weekend data, it's holding that 20-day average. I have to remember what it says on TradingView. I don't know. Does your chart say it's holding the 20-day average? I don't know. I can't remember.
There is no closing below that, at least.
Okay.
For the, I think it was Bitstamp, so there was no closing below that.
Yeah. And
all right. So
as long as we're holding above that 20-day average, there's no point fighting this, and it's dangerous to fight it. I think eventually we're going to take out. I think I would be surprised if we did not at some point, sometime this month or next month, we did not close or take out the 20-day average and actually go below the lows we made just recently. The lows of I forget exactly where that low was, just near the 10,000, 9,000 level. I think it was on the June lows we made about a week or so ago. So I think that's quite likely. And then we'll see. I mean, your question was, do I think this is still a bear market? Now, I know you're going to ask me that question, but at the moment, here's what I would say. At the moment, I would say the odds, the probability that we're in a bear or a bull market is about 50-50, 50%. Now, I know some people are going to say, that's crazy. Surely this is a bull market. I mean, it looks like a bull market. I would say, look, if this is, and I know I don't want to repeat myself because I'm sure you're going to ask this question again, but I would say at the moment, it's too early to call this as a definite bull market or even a high probability bull market, because in a healthy bull market, the market doesn't go straight up. You have these retracements, you have these pullbacks. The fact that we have not seen a pullback, a proper retracement down to the weekly averages, like the weekly 20-day average or 21-day average, the fact that we have not seen that retracement yet makes me question, makes me doubt the probability that we're in a bull market. This is something you'd see more in bear market rallies than a bull market rally. But nonetheless, I'm not going to make my mind up on which one it is. I'm going to say it's 50-50. And I know people hate that. People hate it when you say, oh, 50-50. It's worthless.
Up or down, right?
Well, I would say, well, look, I have to go with the evidence. I have to go with the facts. And what do the facts say?
Exactly.
Look, I will agree to this point. And I know it's fair to say that, look, at the moment, bulls have control, buyers have the control. So yes, there is a slight probability in favor of the bulls. There is a slight probability that there is, I would say, just slightly over 50%. This could be a bull market. I will give you that. Okay. I don't think there's much question about that. I mean, at the end of the day, we've taken above resistance. We're above the resistance levels in the weekly averages and daily averages. Sorry, we're above weekly and daily time frame resistance levels. So I will agree the bulls have the edge at the present moment. So there's a slight probability in favor. This is a bull market. However, we want to be careful not to get too overly bullish here because, as I mentioned in a video that I posted some weeks ago, we have to see where the retracement comes down to. We need to see a retracement. And until we get that retracement, and until we know where that retracement is going to take us down to, we won't know with a high degree of probability whether this is a bull or a bear market. So that piece of information is still missing. So I would say, look, there's nothing wrong with being bullish on this market as long as you're being cautious here, because eventually we're going to have this retracement. And I think probably very soon we're going to get that retracement down to perhaps the 20-day weekly 20 weekly average. And we want to see if that level holds.
Right.
If that level does not hold and Bitcoin pushes lower below that and goes below support levels, then no. You might be able to kiss the bull market goodbye if that happens, because that's going to make it rather unlikely. We're in a bull.
Right.
I'm going to say, look, let's remain cautious. At the moment, the probability suggests we're at 50%, just slightly over 50%. This is a bull market. About the same probability, 50%. This could be a bear market rally. I want to see where that retracement comes down to. And until we get that, we don't have all the information yet to make our minds up as to what this is we're dealing with.
Right. I think that it's a great point. I think that actually a lot of people are comparing Bitcoin with gold, despite the fact that there is a different time scale on the price evolution, like in the topping in 79th or something, and there was a correction, and then the rally, the bull market after that was pretty much similar to what we saw right now. And the major correction happened like almost at the previous all-time high of the gold, and was something like more than 40% or around so. So we didn't have it right now with Bitcoin. And since gold held this level and continued to go higher, then it was kind of establishment of the bull market. So we would like indeed to see something similar. And in fact, when you were answering this question, you actually covered a couple of more which I have in my list about whether it's a bear market and about the correction and EMAs and everything. So I will switch to the other ones. So let's assume that we'll have our bull market, or we will have our bull market after it will be established. So do you think that this bull market will be similar to the previous cycle, or it will be something different? And if it will be different, then in which way? What's your standpoint?
That's a good question. There are many people who are suggesting this could be identical or similar to the one we had from 2015, 2018, 19, whatever you want to call it. Or 17, I should say. The rally peaked in December 2017. I would say, look, every cycle, every bull market is going to be different, obviously. No bull market will be exactly the same. But there will be similar patterns, I will say this. One of the things that I will say this, though, so far, I don't see a huge similarity between this and the 2015, 2017 bull market. Because in that rally, in that bull market, we had at least two failed rallies. Two times the market, Bitcoin tried to rally, it failed. It fell back. We haven't had that so far. Well, I don't think we've had that so far. So far, this rally has taken off, and it's not seeing any kind of pullback. And again, we did not see this in the last bull market either in 2015. Bitcoin went up parabolically, yes, but it then also retraced decently back to some key support levels, like the 21 weekly average, and we've not seen that so far. Now we might get that in the next few weeks, who knows? But no, I wouldn't say this is identical or even similar. At the moment, I have to say one thing that strikes me about this is one of the things that worries analysts or technical analysts and traders is when something looks a bit too obvious. If everybody thinks, here's a problem, if something looks too obvious, if something looks like too much like it's a bull market, something is wrong here. Because almost at the moment, the sentiment on this market has become extremely bullish. If you talk to most people today, they will probably, I think about 80% of people will say, well, this is definitely a bull market. This is definitely going up to, 50,000, whatever. They might be right. But look, bottom line is that this overly bullish sentiment, very optimistic, high amount of optimism still, even now. There was a report came out from Jason Gepper that showed optimism once again has peaked. Sorry, not peaked. Optimism has gone to extreme levels. So again, when something looks overly obvious and when everybody is very bullish and there's no retracement yet, like you would see in a pullback in a bull market, it makes me slightly worried, that this might not be what we think it is. Nonetheless, it does not mean I'm going to stand in front of the market. It doesn't mean I'm going to bet against the market either, because that is also dangerous. Because the markets can be irrational. That's the way they are. They don't have to make sense. So what I would say is I'm playing this cautiously for now. I personally, at the moment, I don't have any positions at the moment on this rally because I think the risk reward just don't make a lot of sense. The risk at the moment is too much in favor of a retracement, some kind of pullback. So for me to take, this is just my own personal point of view, but for me to be extremely bullish right now when the risk of a retracement or some kind of major pullback is probably very high, I don't think that would be something that would be, it would not be proper. It would not be something that I would consider to be a rational decision. But again, as I said, markets don't have to be rational. Sometimes they don't make any sense. But again, let's wait and see what happens now. Bitcoin is trying to make another attempt to make a new high. When I say new high, a high this year. And let's see if it succeeds. If it succeeds, making another high and if it closes above the highs we made last month, then that might actually be that might signify yet another parabolic move, perhaps to the
Exactly.
zone between 15,000 to 20,000. Again, let's just keep it simple. Let's just say 15 to 16,000. That might be another level.
Right.
But I personally, for the moment, I'm edging towards the possibility or the probability that we're going to have some kind of retracement soon back down towards support levels on the weekly time frame. Support levels, again, on the 21 daily moving average, 21 weekly average, or the 100 daily moving average. Which is a level that gets tested over and over again.
Right.
In a bull market. In a bull market, you want to see that market coming back down. You want to see the bulls being taken out. You want to see those extremely bullish people being shaken out in a healthy market. Now, we haven't had that so far. So so I'm going to keep my mind open. Again, it's a 50-50 scenario, which I know everybody hates, but let's just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, especially when you try to manage your risks.
Yes, manage your risks. I should also say, I mentioned this in a video some weeks ago, that even if this is a bear market rally, there is still a possibility in a bear market rally for the wave, the kind of a B wave rally, to go back and test the previous highs it made.
Right.
In 2017. So there is still a probability. It's a small probability. I don't really expect that personally. But again, that probability is still there, that the bear market rally or the B wave could go back and test the previous highs at 20,000. That's possible. And then
that would be really disappointing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then we might see, sellers and bears taking control. So to me, that's a kind of a second scenario I'm considering. We'll see.
Sure.
But at the moment, like I said before, bulls still have control. As long as we are keeping above the 20-day average, bulls remain in control for the moment.
This is an interesting point, though. So on the one hand, this is like adding the weight to the fact that this is a bull market, but on the other hand, as soon as we are above this moving average, it means that we are going more and more parabolic. Then it means that the chances of having a significant correction is growing, actually. So Absolutely. It's kind of a rational thing. It's like it's contradiction here, but it's like that. This it is. So yeah.
I would say you're absolutely right, Kirill, because I would say you're absolutely right. In fact, there are other chartists who are pretty much saying the same thing, and I agree with them, which is that the more bullish and the more parabolic this is becoming, the more it pays for us to be contrarians, as you correctly said, because the more extreme this rally becomes, the more sort of parabolic this becomes, without some kind of major retracement, then the more likely it is that we're probably dealing with not probably a bull market rally, but a bear market rally. And that could mean that, in fact, that the eventual drop could be much more significant, which could be so significantly bad, the drop, that it might cause the sentiment to shift completely.
Right.
And
exactly.
It might even mean that instead of the bulls being in control, sellers might take control. But again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I want to wait until see what the market actually tells us. So I'm keeping that idea open as well. And I think you have a question for me regarding something.
Yeah. So if you still have a few minutes, we have like a couple more questions, then we can wrap it up. So speaking about the market going to the bull cycle and whatever it will go after that, of course, the most the question which most of the people are excited about, and this question doesn't have an answer, but we still want to hear your opinion. So what is, in your view, what is the maximum price of Bitcoin at the next all-time high?
Well, I don't want to say maximum, as you probably know. Probably the maximum is unknown. But my ideal target, if what we're dealing with is a bull market rally, if we take out the highs at 20,000, then the likely levels could be I would say 50,000 to 60,000, very likely. I think 30,000 might be taken out. And again, this is kind of a long-term view. I'm not saying it's going to get there necessarily in the next few months. But if this is a bull market rally, then yes, my targets, eventual targets for probably by next year, by 2020, is that level, 50 to 60,000.
Okay, well, this is actually quite conservative approach. I mean, a lot of the like sober analysts think the same way. Like it shouldn't go to like $1 million or even $100,000. So yeah, I guess so. But on the other hand, you're pointing out that there is a potential that the price may go to the previous all-time high in case of the like fake bull rally when it's actually a bear rally. Bears continuing to be a bear market. So in principle, if from 20 to 30,000, it's not a big gap. So technically, it's really hard to distinguish between the two. But so,
I would say that would be the most interesting scenario. It's not a scenario that I expect is very likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, it would be very. My assumption, my expectation was that the market would make a 61.8% Fibonacci retracement, which it did that in June. It came to the 61.8% retracement of the decline of the crash, and that level was about 13,500 approximately. And my expectation was once we hit that level, we'll start that major retracement down at the very least to 8,000, 7,000 level.
Yeah,
it hasn't done that yet. So the question is, if there is no retracement at the moment, what happens now? Well, if it continues going up, you're absolutely right. There's nothing to stop it going to, let's say, 15, 16, 8, maybe even 20,000. The big question is this. If it goes to 20,000, the most likely scenario, I think, would be it spikes above that level, as you correctly said. I don't know how much higher it will spike. It might spike above 20,000, and then we're going to see sellers, short sellers, probably taking control, pushing it back down, and we might see some kind of a reversal candle pattern, and we might see a major drop from there. And yes, that could still be a bear market rally within technical analysis and within even other, not just Elliott wave theory. In most technical analysis, a bear market rally could go to that previous level. That would be called, I guess, a double top pattern, some kind of double formation. Now we'll see. I mean, at the moment we're speculating. Let's wait and see if, first of all, let's play it step by step. So first of all, question is Bitcoin going to get above the previous highs we made in June? If it does that, fine. We go to the next step, 16 to 15,000. If it gets above that level as well, then potentially, yes, 19, 20,000.
Previous all-time high, right?
Yes. But again, to me, that's the less likely scenario. I think the more likely scenario is that even if we come back and test the previous highs we made of June, again, near 13,800, 14,000, I think we might see a little spike above that and then fall back down. We might start the retracement then towards the weekly average of about 7,000 to 8,000. That to me is much more likely. But I have to tell you, so far, buyers still have control. Let's see where they take this market up to. It's looking really interesting. One other thing I'm watching, by the way, one thing I should mention, and I'm going to mention this in another video.
Okay, we have an exclusive material, guys.
What's that?
So you actually announcing it before your video, so we have an exclusive data here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to go into this in more detail next time. But one market I am watching, which I think your viewers should watch as well, is Litecoin. I recently made a video on my YouTube channel, which is whether Litecoin could be a leading indicator for Bitcoin. Right now, we're seeing a discrepancy, a divergence between what Litecoin is doing and what Bitcoin is doing. For me, Litecoin could be an interesting leading indicator because in the previous times, Litecoin has tended to be leading the way. Not sure why it's doing that, but there are all kinds of theories as to why it could be doing that. Bottom line is, Litecoin is not showing the same amount of strength at the moment. In the last few weeks, Litecoin has been kind of lagging the strength of Bitcoin. Now, we don't know what that means. Could it mean that Litecoin is playing catch up with Bitcoin? In other words, is Litecoin going to catch up eventually with Bitcoin and go higher? Or is it that Litecoin is leading us, is showing something, because Litecoin is showing some weakness at the moment. It hasn't rallied like Bitcoin has. So the question is Litecoin's weakness, is it a leading indicator for Bitcoin? We'll see. So I'm watching Litecoin. I want to see what it does in the next few days or this week or next week. If Litecoin pushes lower, That might be very interesting, because if Litecoin plunges and Bitcoin is still showing strength, that might mean something is not quite right, a divergence between the two. That might actually be a leading indication of weakness for Bitcoin as well. So I'm watching the correlation between these two, which is really interesting at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. We shall, or maybe there will be no correlation at all. Maybe we have just the one point for making an assumption, and the second point will be completely different. So, but it's interesting to observe.
There is that too.
So, last short question. Actually, you mentioned Elliott waves theory, and it seems like you're paying attention to that a lot in your analysis. So, is it your most favorite approach, or maybe have others like different indicators or something like which you use in your chart analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. No, it's not the only thing I use. I use other methodologies apart from Elliott waves. I use mostly Elliott waves for sort of understanding the big picture scenario. But I also like to look at momentum indicators, momentum on the higher time frame, and also, of course, I make a lot of use of the moving averages. So
sure.
Yeah, so momentum, whether it's a momentum histogram, like for example on momentum histogram, you can use any momentum histogram you like or momentum indicator you like. Personally, I have a few of our own which I look at. Moving averages, definitely I would look at that. Position of the moving averages in relation to the price. Another thing I'm looking at is something we've been working on in the last few weeks. Last few months. I've been working on an indicator which I showed in a video about. The video is called Bitcoin Bubble, and it's called LT acceleration or LT axle, and I'm looking at that purely because it is a measurement of the acceleration of Bitcoin. And that's quite important because a lot of people think that a lot of people misunderstand the meaning of a bubble. So when you say to someone, is this in a bubble? Is Bitcoin a bubble? Is stock markets in a bubble or whatever? They make a wrong assumption. They think that a bubble is simply about the price. By the way, I made this assumption myself about a couple of years ago. I think it was essentially an incorrect assumption. Because if you're thinking a bubble just means you're looking at the price, that's not correct. A bubble also means you should be looking at two other things apart from the price. One is the amount of euphoria, the extreme optimistic sentiment, what people are saying, how optimistic people are. The second thing is acceleration. Acceleration is looking at the speed, how quickly the price is moving.
Right.
So it's not correct to just be looking at the price and saying, well, the price is too cheap. No. If price moves too fast, accelerating too fast, and if people are becoming extremely bullish, that is also an indication of a bubble as well. So
it seems like it's very similar to what we observe now with Bitcoin.
Yes, it is slightly similar, with the exception that some of the indicators we look at to identify a bubble have not yet signaled a bubble. So in my video a few weeks ago, I said that yes, in 2017, there were definitely indications of a bubble, especially in November, December 2017. And if we go back to 2013, in that previous peak, there was also indications of a bubble. At the moment, we haven't had that yet. We haven't had the signals you would see in a bubble, which is probably good news for Bitcoin bulls. So yes, there has been acceleration, but the acceleration has not yet reached the level that you could call this a bubble.
Right.
We might get there soon, though. We might get there maybe, who knows. If Bitcoin continues to go up, rallying, accelerating to 20,000, that level, we might begin to see those kind of signals that might...
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't say that. People don't want to hear that. We want to go to the moon, right, everybody? Absolutely. All right. Well, that was an amazing answers and a lot of information here, apart from what we actually planned and had in mind. So thank you very much for your time. If there is anything else, part of the things which we're talking about, to tell to our subscribers, to people who are watching this, go ahead. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks very much. And all I would say is, for those of you who haven't seen our YouTube channel, you can join us on youtube.com/Alessio Rastani. And of course, you can check out our, we have also a members area. members updates as well. For example, tonight I'm interviewing a Bitcoin expert who's probably much more knowledgeable than Bitcoin than I am. Although he's coming to Bitcoin from a fundamentals perspective, whereas I am coming to it from a technical perspective. So I'm interviewing tonight Dominic Frisby, who's an author of I think a well-known book on Bitcoin. And so I'll be asking him questions. So I'm going to learn something myself tonight, probably from him. So So people want to become members, they can check us out on leadingtrader.com/join. And again, thanks very much for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. All the links I will put in the description to this video. So go ahead and check the channel of running by Alessio and all his resources. It's a lot of data there and a lot of the information you can get, even from the regular videos which he uploads like very often. So once again, thanks a lot for making this, and it would be very nice if we'll make it once again. Anyway, it was a great pleasure, and it was a lot of the info we covered. I think people will be very excited and happy to see that. Okay, thanks a lot. And
yes, thanks very much indeed.
Let's hope for the nice rally for Bitcoin will not end up in a great correction.
Absolutely. Okay. Look forward to it.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye now.